Let's kick things off with a little trip down memory lane. Picture a handful of coins rattling in your pocket, ones minted in years you remember fondly, maybe even the year your first child was born or when you landed that big promotion. Today's spotlight falls on 3 pennies that quietly slipped under the radar for decades before catching the keen eye of seasoned collectors: the 1975, the 2001, and the 1994 one-penny pieces. Our journey starts with the 1975 penny, a coin that at first glance blends right in with its Lincoln predecessors but hides quirks and oddities that can send its value soaring. Let's unravel its story. The tale of the 1975 penny begins amid economic turbulence. Production quotas at the Denver and Philadelphia mints were ramping up to meet skyrocketing demand for cents, which in turn was fueled by rising inflation and a shortage of small change. Striking more than 15 billion pieces, the U.S. Mint seemed determined to flood the market. Yet within that immense run, a few rarities emerged, often born from human error or subtle die variations. It's fascinating to think that what started as a workhorse coin, destined for everyday transactions, could turn into a prized collectible. One of the most important identifying features on any 1975 penny is the mint mark, or absence of one. The Philadelphia strike famously carries no mint mark, while Denver pieces are stamped with a small D below the date. But beyond that obvious distinction, collectors on the hunt pay close attention to the sharpness of Lincoln's profile, the alignment of the date digits, and the clarity of fine lines in the wheat stalks on the reverse, since these were still wheat cents until 1958, but later recycled wheat design proofs can confuse novices when images circulate. Minor doubling on the date or the word Liberty can also signal a double die variety, a feature that, when authenticated, can multiply a penny's worth by dozens or even hundreds. Market values for the 1975 penny hinge dramatically on condition and rarity. A base Philadelphia piece in heavily circulated condition might trade for just its face value or a modest 10 to 25 cents at most. Shift to an uncirculated grade, say, a Mint State 60, MS60, and you're looking at a range closer to $1 to $2 for a common strike. But uncover a true MS67 or MS68 specimen, and auction rooms have seen bids push into the $50 to $200 range, depending on eye appeal and luster. The real jackpot arrives when a collector presents a verified double die obverse or reverse. Those have fetched upward of $500, sometimes breaching $1,000 when a top-tier pedigree is on the line. What adds real flair to the 1975 penny's narrative are the oddball stories hidden behind certain error finds. One Denver collector in Ohio discovered a roll of pennies with one coin bearing an astonishingly off-center strike, nearly half the portrait missing, after his daughter spilled the roll on the kitchen floor. It sold at auction for more than $2,300, partly because the coin striking misalignment was so extreme that the date itself was almost unreadable. Other reports mention pennies with clipped planchets, coins missing the entire mint mark, or even pieces that faintly show remnants of the previous year's tooling from a repolished die. Each one isn't just a coin, it's a snapshot of the minting process, revealing the tiny missteps that occur when millions of metal blanks meet massive coining presses. Condition brings yet another layer to the valuation conversation. In circulated grades, say, fine, F12, or very fine, VF20, the 1975 penny often carries negligible premium. As surfaces dull and details flatten from pocket wear, it's difficult for such examples to stand out. Yet those who can sniff out an EF40, extremely fine, with original red-brown luster might walk away with $2 or $3 in hand, since the soft glow and crispness of the strike are still present. Moving up to about uncirculated, 50 to 58 Australian dollars, prices climb modestly. $4 to $8 isn't unheard of, particularly if the fields, the flat areas around Lincoln's bust, show minimal marking. And mint state survivors, especially those that have never seen circulation or exposure to harsh cleaning, command the real premium. MS65 examples may sell in the $15 to $30 window, while the very choicest MS67 Plus coins find themselves courted by major auction houses and prized by registries. Digging deeper, One odd but intriguing point is the slight variance in copper composition for pennies minted between 1962 and 1982, which included our 1975 piece. The alloy mix shifted ever so slightly in trace elements, zinc, tin, and even trace nickel, creating coins that, under X-ray fluorescence analysis, show differing readings. This metallurgical fingerprinting has become a tool for high-end collectors to verify originality and detect illicit plating jobs, where circulated copper coins are thinly coated with red copper in hopes of passing them off as uncirculated gems. Beyond metallurgy, a handful of fun trivia tidbits stay in circulation among hobbyists. Did you know that a small batch of 1975 dies was accidentally overpolished, resulting in smoother surfaces and faint die scratches? Or that in one minting run, workers accidentally left a small protective grease film on select dies, causing coins to come off with an odd matte finish? Reports from mint employees, later unearthed in internal memos, reveal that quality control measures flagged these batches but ultimately let them through because the errors were deemed too minor to halt production. Yet perhaps the best part of collecting a 1975 penny lies in the thrill of the hunt. Unlike older key dates where surviving populations are well documented, or modern pennies where mass production dampens rarity, the 1975 issues straddle a curious middle ground. You encounter them daily if you look, but your grab bag might quietly harbor a gem worth more than a fancy dinner out. Holding one in hand, knowing that a slight tilt in the die or a whisper of doubling could set it apart from billions of others, makes every clink in the coin tray a potential treasure chest. As we wrap up the story of the 1975 penny, keep in mind that its journey from humble circulation piece to collectible marvel demonstrates how small quirks can yield big rewards. Inspect your coins under good light, look for anomalies in the shape or alignment of the date and letters, and consider seeking a professional grading service if you think you've got something special. That way, you'll have the authentication and a clear certificate to back up any auction bids down the road. With that, we'll pause before moving on to our next featured penny, the 2001 strike that has its own blend of hidden rarities and collector lore. Stand by, because the surprises keep rolling in. With the excitement of uncovering quirks in a 1975 penny still fresh, let's pivot to a much more modern era, the 2001 Lincoln cent. That year might not immediately stand out, millions clinked into circulation with little fanfare, but for collectors who know what to look for, 2001 offers its own cast of rare variations and secret stories. You'll want to lean in close on this one, because behind that familiar silhouette of Honest Abe lies a handful of errors and low mintage mysteries that can send values well above face. The 2001 penny was struck at 3 facilities: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D, and, for the first time since 1981, San Francisco, S, in proof form only. Production numbers were staggering at Philadelphia and Denver, over 4.8 billion and 3.5 billion pieces respectively, yet the proof run from San Francisco was deliberately small, roughly 16 million, making those smooth, mirror-like examples instantly more appealing to specialists. As the mint wrestled with rising zinc prices and continued the 1 cent clad composition, 97.5% zinc, 2.5% copper, quality control tightened, but not tight enough to eliminate every misstrike. The most prominent error to chase is a double die obverse on the Denver cents. In true penny fashion, this variety manifests as subtle shadowing on "In God We Trust" and a slightly thickened stroke on the D mint mark. Only a handful of certified specimens exist, making them serious head-turners at auction. One gleaming MS-65 example sold for over $1,200 at a 2023 event, catching the eye of registry set builders. Equally compelling, but far rarer, are the 2001 S-proof cents that exhibit die gouges or lamination flaws, occasionally leaving crescent-shaped metal curls on the coin's field, as if a tiny scab formed during striking. Value swings dramatically based on condition. A heavily circulated 2001 D penny with obvious wear might fetch a modest 5 to 10 cents at local coin shops. Step up to about uncirculated, $50 and you could see $1 to $2 if the luster and rim remain intact. Mint state survivors make the real difference, MS-63 coins routinely trade in the $4 to $8 range, while MS-66 examples command $15 to $25, especially when the surfaces boast original rose gold tint without distracting contact marks. The 2001 S-proof cents, often graded PR67 or PR68, settle around $10 to $20 for common strike quality, but once a lamination error or minor die scratch is verified, you can tack on another $30 to $50 easily. Beyond market figures, nuggets of trivia enriched the story of the 2001 penny. One collector recounted finding an uncirculated roll at a bank in rural Iowa that, unbeknownst to the teller, contained a single 2001 p cent with a pronounced off-center strike, nearly 40%, with the date and part of Lincoln's bust missing. When it hit the block in 2022, bidders drove the price to $3,500. That find underscores how a casual exchange at the bank can rip open a treasure chest, even in the digital age. There are also documented cases of coins with die cracks that stretch from Lincoln's cheek to the rim, creating an almost spiderweb-like pattern. Those varieties often slip under the radar, since the cracks can be hairline thin and hidden in reflections. Interestingly, 2001 marked the first time the mint introduced an updated sculpt on the reverse die for proofs. The recessed lettering is ever so slightly deeper, giving proofs a crisper strike compared to business strikes. This nuance helps specialists differentiate high-end business strikes from proofs that lost their mirror surfaces due to cleaning or mishandling. Collectors track the fields for tiny die polish lines, too, since cleanup work on proof dies sometimes left faint tool marks that are absent on Philadelphia and Denver issues. Stories of condition-based variation continue to surprise. In circulated grades like fine, F12, or very fine, VF20, pennies often display a uniform brown-gray patina, making rare diagnostics tricky. Yet in extremely fine, EF40, or about uncirculated, $50 pieces, that coppery red core peeks through, especially on the high points of Lincoln's cheek and jawline. Those color breaks can signal an undergrade error. If the strike is uncharacteristically sharp for the wear, you might just be holding an MS coin that was lightly cleaned decades ago. Coin graders frown on such cleaning today, but clean survivors in MS60, MS62 grade sometimes trade for more than untouched MS63 coins, simply because of the rarity of reasonably preserved 2001 issues. When it comes to auction records, a straight 2001 PMS68 Plus found its way to over $300 in 2024, driven by pristine fields and a textbook cameo contrast. Meanwhile, a 2001 D small date variety, where the date appears marginally shorter in width than typical, surfaced in an MS67 holder this past March and broke past $2,100. That little nuance in the 1 and 0 alignment wasn't noticed for years until a meticulous registry collector highlighted it in an online forum, prompting others to re-examine their collections. If you're hunting for these variations, start with rolls and proof sets you might already own. 2001 was a year people were more likely to pocket pennies, not box them away, making circulated error finds surprisingly frequent. Use a loupe to inspect mintmark clarity, check for faint secondary images on the date and motto, and hold the coin at different angles to spot hairline die cracks. When a candidate emerges, submitting it to a grading service like PCGS or NGC can exponentially boost its visibility to serious buyers and ensure you receive top market price. So, as you sift through pocket change or revisit that old proof set tucked in your safe deposit box, keep the 2001 penny on your radar. Between proof anomalies, double dies, and the near-mythical roll find with an off-center strike, this cent proves that even in an era of digital wallets, small metallic discs still hold mighty secrets. Up next, we'll explore the 1994 penny, a date that, despite an appearance of normalcy, unlocks its own chapter of collector intrigue. Stay tuned. Shifting gears from the sprawling production runs of 2001, let's slide back a few years to the surprisingly intriguing world of the 1994 penny. You might recall that 1994 was a year of blockbuster movies and dial-up internet, but tucked into your pocket change are 1-cent pieces that carry stories every bit as rich. Behind that classic Lincoln profile lie subtle quirks, minute minting anomalies, and condition-driven values that seasoned collectors know can translate into serious premiums. The 1994 penny emerged during a period when the mint was still perfecting its transition to the copper-plated zinc planchet introduced in 1982. Struck at both Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, D., the 1994 output totaled over 11 billion coins, 6.9 billion from Philadelphia and 4.3 billion from Denver. This enormous volume makes any error variety inherently rare by comparison. Yet, within that sea of coppery discs, a handful of varieties slipped through quality control: small date versus large date differences, doubled dies, off-center strikes, and even rare, proof-like, business strikes that bear an almost mirror-like sheen. One striking feature to watch for is the date size variation. In the first grouping, dubbed the large date, numerals appear slightly taller and more widely spaced. The small date, by contrast, has more compressed digits with a subtly lower profile. While collectors long argued over relative rarity, recent census data suggests the small date may be overlooked in circulation, quietly lurking in pocket change at a rate perhaps 10 times scarcer than its large date counterpart. That scarcity translates into premiums. A high-grade small date MS-65 might fetch $15, whereas an MS-65 large date hovers closer to $3 to $5. The most coveted errors come from doubled die obverse. Unlike the bold doubling seen on mid-20th century coins, 1994's doubling is whisper-thin, noticeable only under 10x magnification, primarily on the letters Liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust." Confirmed and certified specimens are limited to a few dozen, with top examples landing at auction for as much as $1,000. One standout sale in late 2023 saw a PCGS MS-67 plus DD-OBV coin climb past $1,200, a testament not only to its pristine strike but also to its dramatic cameo contrast, where frosted devices stand out against deeply mirrored fields. Off-center strikes also pepper the 1994 landscape. Most minor shifts, less than 10% of the planchet, yield only a modest bump, perhaps $20 to $40 in uncirculated grades. Yet when the strike misses the mark by 30% or more, exposing blank planchet at the edge and cutting into Lincoln's cheek, the premiums soar. A well-centered MS-64 example of such an off-center error sold for over $3,000 at a Florida auction, largely because the date and year remained fully legible while the composition rang true under spectrographic analysis. Speaking of composition, slight variations in zinc core exposure can add depth to grading. Circulated 1994 pennies that exhibit a red-brown patina along the rims while the fields fade to yellow-brown are often seen as more attractive to grade, since the color break hints at minimal circulation wear. Collectors prize those dual-tone survivors, especially in 58 Australian dollars or MS-60, where you still catch flickers of original luster. In one notable case, a roll-opened 58 Australian dollars showing dramatic red-brown rims sold for $120, outpacing cleaner but uniformly colored MS-60 examples. Underneath the surface, faint lamination flaws occasionally appear. These look like tiny silver-gray patches where the copper plating has peeled, revealing the zinc core. While often dismissed as damage, certain examples show such flakes adhered in patterns that suggest a die gouge rather than post-mint corrosion. Authentication experts will X-ray fluorescence test these areas to confirm whether they're true lamination errors. Certified lamination error coins can carry a 30 to 50% premium over their fully plated peers. Despite its modern birth, the 1994 penny has a handful of fun backstories. One collector on a road trip through Texas picked up a handful of spare change at a diner, only to discover that a single Denver coin bore an unbelievably faint cameo contrast, proof dies accidentally used on a business run, yielding a brilliant field but slightly softened hair detail. When slabbed as PR-like and graded PR67RD, it pulled in more than $600, an eye-opener for everyone at the lunch counter who thought pennies were worthless. Condition-based value swings remain dramatic. At the bottom end, heavily worn fine, F12, examples trade for face value or a modest 2 to 3 cents premium. Move up to VF20, where Lincoln's cheek and jawline edges are still defined, and you might see 10 to 15 cents per piece in quantity buys. In EF40, where nearly all details are crisp but some wear shows on Lincoln's coat and the wheat stalks, prices climb to roughly $1 per coin. 50 to 58 Australian dollars pieces, with virtually no friction on the high points, regularly command $2 to $5, with original satin finishes in 58 Australian dollars fetching as much as $8. The jump in mint state is where the real excitement lives. MS63 examples, with minimal contact marks and robust luster, usually trade in the $10 to $15 range. MS65 coins with strong cameo contrast or deep, swirling satin fields can command $35 to $50. And when you hit that sweet spot, an MS67 RD with razor-sharp rim definition and virtually zero hairlines, collectors have paid upwards of $200 in private sales. What ties all these variations together is the thrill of discovery. Whether you're paging through a roll of pennies you dug from an old piggy bank or rifling through pocket change in your weekend errands, the 1994 penny reminds us that even modern issues can harbor surprises. A quick glance under good light, a careful loupe inspection, and an understanding of those subtle date and doubling nuances can transform a mundane copper disc into a stellar addition to your registry set. As our exploration of the 1994 penny concludes, take a moment to revisit those pennies you've already shelved. Look for the understated small date, the whisper of doubled letters, and any traces of off-center strikes or lamination flakes. Your next treasure might be hiding in plain sight, waiting for that discerning eye to unlock its value. Up next, we'll tie together the journey of all three pennies and reveal how these modest coins, each minted in different eras, tell a singular story about mistakes, mysteries, and the enduring magic of the hunt.